Okay, it's now 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We move on to comments from the public, and we'll start with the public audience here. Do we have any questions or comments? No, okay. Larry, do you have anybody online?
We don't have any hands currently raised.
Okay. Good. Okay, we'll move on to discussion and possible action of the meeting minutes from our regular meeting and our special meeting. We'll start with the regular meeting of April 24th. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, now move on to the special meeting of May 4th, 2023. I have a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we'll move on to executive report. So if you want to just start with the first one, and if there's questions, we'll pause in between each one.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Glad to see everybody here. We'll start first with the fiscal 23 operating budget. So as we've discussed in previous meetings, with the recent unannounced departure of some personnel, and with a lot of our people seeking to take vacation time in June, we are currently spending a lot of money out of payroll to keep the patrol shifts staffed. And so for the first time in a very long time, I am concerned about where the budget will end up at the end of the year. And so I've taken some steps to mitigate as best as we possibly can whatever our end result will be, which will hopefully be in the black. But again, at this point, sitting here tonight, I'm not sure. So the steps that we've taken, normally this time of year, as the commissioners here with tenure know, we make a lot of end of the year purchases. And so this year we are not doing that. All that is on hold. The safety equipment that was approved by the commission, a little bit more than half of that money is now going to come from off budget funds. We had talked about closing out the law enforcement fund. That committee did have their meeting and did vote unanimously to do that. As I previously stated, we're going to use about $10,000 from the asset forfeiture account, and we'll use close to $7,900 from our off-budget uniform account. So that will help mitigate some expenses. As I've also spoken to the commission previously, I'll be sitting down with the first selectman and the finance director to take a look at some of our legal expenditures to see if some of the bills that we've been paying should actually be attributed to the labor and personnel account here at town hall. So things like grievances, maybe some things that have to do with our terminations or long-term discipline issues. Maybe that stuff needs to come out of the town hall account. Maybe that's where it should have come out in the first point. So doing everything like that to mitigate as much as we can, but the commission should know that it costs money to obviously staff the vacancies, and that's what we will continue to do. But if anyone has any other questions on the fiscal 23 operating budget, more than happy to answer them at this time.
I just have a quick question. If I added up quickly, that money out of the 3 off budget accounts will cover all of those safety upgrades.
Will not cover them. Covers almost about half, a little bit more than half. So the other half will still come out of our budget as we intended. Any other questions on the 23 operating budget? Renee, okay to just
Yeah, just keep going.
great. So fiscal 24 budget process, everyone knows that the budget passed. So thank you to those of you who showed up to vote. Again, a very small percentage of our community for some reason turns out, or only a small percentage turns out. We wish we would have more participation in that. But thank you to you folks who worked on that budget process, obviously the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance for doing all the hard work that they do annually to make sure that we have a safe, sound, and effective and efficient budget for the town of Old Saybrook to operate. So that is done. The off-budget account details were provided in your packet. We provided you with an updated accounting of the law enforcement fund. There was some sort of formula issue or something with the one that we sent you in your packet. So you have the latest and greatest version of that. Remember that fund will be eventually depleted once the bills come in for those pieces of safety equipment. But if anyone has any questions on the off budget accounts.
Just on, what is this treasurer for the state of Connecticut out of law enforcement? At the very bottom.
That was the new one. So that was like a land deduction.
Gotcha. So something, Leanne, the finance director, did something with that. So we'll have to look into that. That was the issue that we had. That's why we were off 2 budget balance numbers. And we'll have to figure out why that entry was made, but
Okay.
we wanted to show you the latest and greatest entry.
That's my only question. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, the police insurance exchange, there was Horizon Technologies. What was that? Oh, it's a $5,000 check.
It was literally last one on the,
Yeah, so that's.
there's no page numbers, but.
Horizon Technology.
Yes.
Yes, that was for cameras that blew up during the lightning strike. So all part of the insurance reimbursement. Okay, going on to personnel matters. So happy to report that the one patrolman that was out of work for about 2.5, close to 3 weeks is now back to work. So that is obviously a help. For professional development over the last month, we had a couple of officers go through their 3-year recertification course. That would be Sergeant Walsh and Palmieri, Detective Tabor, and Patrolman Torje, Oresco, and Tanner. The captain and I also floated in and out of specific segments of that training for us to earn our credits towards our recertification. Moving on to Operation.
This question.
Sure.
How many more mandatory trainings do you think our police force will have to do between now and the end of the budget?
None.
Thank you.
There is some training scheduled, but there's no more mandatory training scheduled.
Okay, just thinking that, if we need to put people on patrol, can we eliminate some of the training and push it off?
Yeah, good thought, but it would be a deficit to the operation to do so. So those that are scheduled for the remaining training classes are scheduled and go. Operation Safe Saybrook. You all were given the flyers in your email. I talked to our reporter today from the Harbor News. We'll have an ad into that. I believe the Board of Selectmen is also going to do a press release. So the event will take place on Saturday, June 3rd. If you remember, this was a concept that was spoken about with the Board of Selectmen after they received a letter from me last year asking that the town of Old Saybrook do some sort of gun buyback program. The issue was forwarded to the Board of Finance, where there was a lot of discussion. To take the politics out of the discussion, I said, let's just do it without funding. Let's try one without funding. And everyone was agreeable to that. And so what we're specifically targeting in Old Saybrook are those folks that maybe have had a loved one pass on and they're left with the old gun, the old revolver or pistol left in the house, or shotguns or ammunition. The department, obviously 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, will accept these items. If people are afraid to touch them, they only have to call us and we'll go get them. But we wanted to hold one event where people could definitely come to and hand in old ammunition or unwanted weapons. And we'll also be giving out free gun locks. So if you're a gun owner and you need another gun lock, you can come to this event on June 3rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here at the town hall. And no questions asked, just get another free gun lock. So we'll be teaming up with various volunteers from our elected officials on the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, and looking forward to a good day. Hopefully people are responsive and come to the event, and then we'll see what we want to do to enhance it for next year. June is Gun Violence Awareness Month, so it was very timely that we do it in June. And as the commission remembers, this is one of my executive goals for the year is to hold this event. So very happy that that is scheduled and ready to go.
Thank you for that. That's a really great initiative. Really appreciate it. What will you do with anything that you collect?
Yeah, social media is a buzz. Some people offering to buy them from us. That's not how it works. So the ammunition gets sent to the firearms unit, gets destroyed. And Any guns that come in will go somewhere for a little forensic review, make sure they were not used in the commission of a serious crime, and then eventually they'll be destroyed.
Question, if they were used in a crime, that then, what happens, since I think the give back is like no questions?
No question. So if you're in possession of the gun, you will not be charged with being in possession of an illegal weapon if you want to hand it in. If it was obviously involved in a murder, then that information will be given to whoever the agency is. We won't have the person's name who handed in the gun, but we'll certainly have the firearm.
Thanks.
Jessica, you have one thing.
I did, forgot it, so sorry. I know, I think I was gonna ask, so I actually bought in a bunch of like shotgun shells that I dug up from my backyard in the ground, and it's a very easy process. They were very caring that way, so even in this way, illegal. Oh, that's what it was. Thank you. Say it to myself. So on social media, people are saying, well, hey, if you want to buy illegal and come to me, you stated specifically that it's illegal. Correct? Like guns and ammunition and so forth that you want to collect.
No, any weapon.
Oh, I thought it said illegal.
So part of it, right? So this says unwanted guns and unwanted or old ammunition,
Okay,
or illegal guns and illegal magazines.
okay,
So if you're someone that has a high capacity magazine at home, you're not supposed to have it under the law. You can come turn it in, get it out of your possession without any consequences. So our goal, Operation Safe Saver, is just to make the town safer. And so if you're someone that has that old revolver in your house that's been passed down from generation to generation, you want nothing to do with it, God forbid that home is burglarized and someone breaks in and now steals that weapon. This is an opportunity, little public awareness, to take some inventory and get rid of those things that could fall into, you know, the wrong hands if a crime was committed, like a burglary in a home. So this is just a overarching, another way that we can work together as Team Old Saybrook to make our community safe. And so if you don't want your gun that's in your house, give it to us. Saybrook becomes safer. It's just that simple. Any other questions on Operation Safe Saybrook? Great, thank you. And the activity report was obviously distributed in your packets.
I have a question, and I don't know that it's totally related to the activity, but it's something that happened. It was brought to my attention about the person passing away at Apple Rehab. I didn't realize that was over a year ago. I know you can't give me details, but is that being investigated? Like, when I first heard about it, I thought somebody there was neglect at the West Room and somebody died, and now it sounds like that's.
So even if there was just neglect, that would be an investigation.
Right, but I'm saying homicide versus, like, so from what I understand, it's being treated as a homicide, and do we investigate that, or do the state police?
So we investigate all crimes that happen in all cities.
Okay, are we investigating that?
So we won't comment on any ongoing criminal investigations, but you should be rest assured that the department is doing its job.
Okay.
Any other questions on the activity report? Okay, Madam Vice Chair, that's it for me.
Let's move on to item 5, report of the subcommittee to develop sorry, I can't see that great, so it'll take me a minute, a proposed bylaw concerning responsibilities of commissioners. And before we get started, before they report, I just want to thank everybody. I've watched the videos, I've read all the minutes, and you guys did do a lot of work, a lot of compromising. So,
I'll take it from there.
Okay.
Thank you for that. We did absolutely do an awful lot of work. And that bylaw went through 4 cycles of revision. Within those 2 meetings, we agreed on a variety of points that were discussed, but there were also, as you mentioned, sharp differences of opinion on some concepts. The subcommittee truly wrestled and debated those extensively. And we successfully came to a consensus and a vote. And there was an awful lot of collaboration and much compromise. The unanimous vote to move the completed bylaw to the full commission is now before you for consideration. So
moving on.
Joe has
Oh, Joe, do you want to say anything or Carl?
Just real quick, so compared to what you had in your email, this is very, very similar. Just a couple of small things. We made numbers at the top instead of letters for consistency. And when I worked with Secretary D'Amato to work on the language of the meeting, I neglected to have a wordsmith. What was D, which is now 4, just to start with commissioners will, just to be consistent. So those are the changes from what you got in your email a day or two ago from Jill.
Yes, but they're not substantive changes, they're just more stylistic.
Okay, so I guess we'll move on to item 6 and discussing a possible action to refer the responsibilities of commissioners bylaw to the next regular meeting for action. So I want to entertain a motion, but I think we should probably read through this.
Sure.
Just so everybody.
Do you want, shall I read it out loud?
Yeah, that's if you don't mind.
Okay, role of commission members. Number 1, the Old Saybrook Police Commission represents the residents of Old Saybrook in carrying out their roles as a member of the commission. Number 2, commissioners understand that commission authority rests only with the whole commission assembled in a duly noticed public meeting. Number 3, commissioners understand that the commission's powers derive from the Connecticut General Statutes, Chapter 104, Section 7-276, and the Town Charter. And 4, commissioners will actively engage in the work of the commission. This includes reading distributed materials, asking questions, participating in discussions, and keeping informed regarding matters within their purview. And then for the code of conduct, we have 10 items. Old Saybrook Police Commissioners will 1, adhere to these commission bylaws. 2, familiarize themselves and strive to comply with parliamentary procedures and the requirements of the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act. 3, maintain confidentiality in matters discussed in confidence, including refraining from divulging to anyone any details discussed in executive session. 4, conduct themselves in a fair and impartial manner during all commission meetings or when discussing commission proceedings. 5, strive to ensure that the Department of Police Services has the personnel, training, and equipment to fulfill their mission. 6, consider all information that is part of the record at commission meetings when voting on any matter. 7, abide by decisions reached by the commission as a collective body. 8, disclose in advance to the commission chair any possible conflicts of interest regarding matters on the agenda for a commission meeting. Number 9, understand that the demonstration of bias or prejudgment may prevent that commissioner from participating in discussion or decision when the commission is acting in its quasi-judicial capacity. And lastly, number 10, when acting in their quasi-judicial capacity, refrain from also acting as an investigative capacity, in an investigative capacity. I think this was a very extensive work. It seems to include anything and everything I could possibly think of that should be in here.
Can I bring up one thing?
Well, we wanted a motion and then we discuss.
Okay, I move to bring this forward to the next commission meeting for approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Jessica, do you want to go first?
No,
Oh,
it's your time.
yes, sorry, yes. A motion to discuss, is that what it said?
No, motion to move it.
A motion to move it, thank you, yes.
No, so you said you wanted to make some comments.
Yes.
Oh, my God, sorry. Okay, so, I'm sorry. The Old Saybrook Police, so in role of commission members, number 1. The Old Saybrook Police Commission represents the residents of Old Saybrook in carrying out the roles of members of the commission. I'm not asking for, an addition, just more clarification. Are we not also representing may not be the right word, but considering the roles of the police officers of Old Saybrook when we make decisions, or no? I just want to know, I just want to clarify. When I am sitting here, who am I representing? Only the residents, or am I also representing police officers of Old Saybrook?
Jill, do you have any idea what you guys were thinking when you said that?
I suppose we could say that we would represent the department as well, but for the most part, I think that the voters are the ones that we represent, the citizens, because we're on the Old Saybrook Police Commission. I mean, it never even crossed my mind to add that in.
Yeah, you know, it is a very high level overarching kind of introductory statement. As elected officials, we are by definition representing the residents. But to your point, I think item 5 below is where we touch upon where we're supporting the department. So it's not like we're not supporting the department.
Strive to ensure that the Department of Police Services has the personnel, training, and equipment to fulfill their mission.
Right.
Strive to ensure. Okay.
I mean, that was our thing.
Yeah. I'd be open to more discussion, but I'm only one person, so
So what are you trying to say? Change it to say represents the residents of Old Saybrook and department members in carrying out their roles and. as
I
a
would
member of the
love
commission?
to put forward like that we do represent them in little ways. I mean, well, what is that?
Yeah, I don't think it changes
And
the
I
meaning.
think what
No,
Joe,
I
what Joe
no, I don't
just,
have a problem with that.
what Joe just said covers that.
Well, I might be confused, but the chief is here. He represents the department.
Okay,
People have unions, the department has unions, so I don't know. We were elected by the residents. And as Joe said, number 5 is a big part. Budget, making sure that they have what they need.
again, I'm just clarification, not more, no,
I don't think it changes your statement.
okay. Thank you.
I mean, do you think it creates a conflict?
Do I think it creates a conflict? I don't. I don't know. I think it could present a bit of a conflict if we're trying to do both ends of things. You know, we represent the community and the department. I mean, you're the representative of the department generally.
Right.
So I don't know. I would just let it rest where it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay for a stern line, like you say no, fine. But if we.
No, I mean, I
like-
think there's some validity in your thought process, right? So I agree with you, but sometimes it might be a balance between what the department needs and what the community wants, right? The community, you could have a room full of people that says, stop this DUI arrest stuff. It's getting too much. We're like, well, no, that's the law. So there is sometimes the balance. Or when we have that conversation about benefits, there might be a room full of people who don't think that there should be additional post-employment benefits, but we're trying to fix a retention issue. So I don't know.
I do think that item number 5 covers that. I don't think in any way this is saying that we're not representing in there for the
I
police
would have to
department.
agree. I don't think it's saying that at all.
Oh, I don't think it excludes it.
Yeah.
By any stretch of it. It just doesn't specifically mention it.
And I don't personally think it needs to be there.
I don't either.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion?
I have some quick thoughts, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Great. So these are really quick things, and I want to echo the vice chairman's comments and congratulate the subcommittee on a very detailed review and presentation. Mr. Lindy, would you mind having a seat, please?
Yeah,
No, not there.
No, no.
That's for the commission. You can sit in the audience.
I can't hear. We need to have microphones on these people. You can't hear these ladies.
Okay, thank you. So I want to applaud their work. It was very, very detailed work, and there was a lot of collaboration and some compromises being made. So I just have a couple of quick things. I highlighted them for you. Would you mind I'll run through real quick and see if you're amenable to any of these very minor things. Like, do you have them all first?
Thank you.
So my first proposed edit comes at number 3 under roll of commission meeting members. Instead of saying Connecticut General Statute, Chapter 104, Section 7, 2-36, I replace that with just the Connecticut General Statutes, because statute numbers can change. There could be new statutes, new public acts that come out that have to do with your roles and responsibilities. And then I add it and this document. So pretty much what governs you are the Connecticut General Statutes, the town ordinance, and your bylaws. And so that was a recommendation for number 3. Renee, I don't know if you want to talk about each one specifically, or Jill, is that?
I think that's actually a very fair comment. Because as we know, legislature does change things very frequently.
And I'll add that shame on me for not thinking in this document that should have been there. That's a miss on our part. I think that's probably in there.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of a given too. So I'm fine with those.
Okay.
Okay. My next suggestion comes at number 4. So number 4 reads, commissioners will actively engage in the work of the commission. This includes reading distributed materials, asking questions, participating in discussions, and keeping informed regarding matters within their purview. And I add it, in accordance with law, right? So the law governs all of us. Well, depending on whatever the laws are. So if there's a new labor law or a new criminal statute or new civil statute that pertains to your duties as a police commissioner, it's your responsibility as an elected official to follow the law when carrying out your duties.
I kind of think that goes without saying, but if anybody thinks that it should be included. If your opinion, that's.
I don't have a problem with being included.
Yeah, I'm fine with it being included as well. I think it just tidies it up. You know, matters within their purview and in accordance with law, it is a given, but I think, it's fine to be in there.
Okay, 2 more, only 1 on your sheet, but 1 more in my mind. If you take a look at number 9. Number 9 says, understand that the demonstration of bias or prejudgment may prevent that commissioner from participating in discussion or decision when the commission is acting in its quasi-judicial capacity. My recommendation is just stop at acting. So if one of your children was up to be hired by the department, you probably would recuse yourself from voting. If your nephew was about to be is in competition with 2 or 3 other people to be promoted to sergeant, you would probably want to recuse yourself from that decision. So my on the fly thought there is that that sentence would just end in acting instead of just restricting it to the quasi judicial capacity, which is normally discipline.
Is active. I think it's just like a bad word to end up. Active.
Why don't you want quasi judicial?
Because I think it's too narrow. So you're only talking about when the commission is assigning discipline. And I think it should be more broad in cases where I just spoke about. Your grandson decides he wants to be an Old Saybrook police officer. You should not have a yay or nay vote in that.
But doesn't that come under, and it may be another bylaw where you have to say if you have a conflict of interest,
Yes,
which
right.
what you're saying is a conflict of interest.
So you have to declare your conflict of interest, but nothing, after you declare it, there's nothing that forces you to not exercise your conflict of interest, right? So the commission can't vote to tell another commissioner that they can't participate in a vote. And so that bylaw requirement only allows me to say to the chairman, I can't vote. Maybe I'm the new, Ford dealer owner, and I'm a member of the commission, and the chief wants to buy 10 new Fords from my dealership. I have to tell the chairman, hey, I own the dealership where the chief wants to buy cars from. But there's nothing that says, you know what, really shouldn't be part of that vote. I shouldn't be voting to spend money at my own dealership.
Well, I would like to think that the people who were elected by people would understand that and would say,
Well-
here's my conflict, and therefore I'm not gonna vote. I mean,
I believe this commission does, but remember, you're writing these bylaws for the future. So that's my thought on that one.
So
But what if what if I owned a Chevy dealership? Would I still be allowed to?
Well, I don't think it puts you in a conflict of interest unless we're buying from you.
well, you want to buy it from you. You want me to buy my
Correct.
shares.
Right.
I
Was there a way to say, but not limited to, like something along those lines?
Go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna clean it, because I agree that adding the word acting is
Yeah,
a little,
thank you.
yeah. From blah, 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 from participating in discussion or decisions by the commission.
Oh, well, there you go.
And the commission is, say it again? Just
From participating in discussions or decisions
okay.
made by the commission. So we don't, so get rid of that, you know,
Made,
that.
so instead of when the commission made by the, okay.
And then my final recommendation is with number 10. Mine says 11. It's wrong. So your number 10 says, when acting in their quasi judicial capacity, refrain from also acting in an investigative capacity. And I read that, I'm like, yes, obviously, but it's flip-flopped. It's kind of like the other way. The investigation would come before we would ask you to entertain discipline as a recommendation from my office. So I rewrote it to say, recognize that they must refrain from acting in an investigative capacity as part of their responsibility may be to serve in a quasi judicial capacity. And remember, this bylaw not only is new, but it also strikes all that the other bylaw. And so I think this is necessary to have that in the right order.
It seems to me, though, that in some ways, you know, your number 11 is still somewhat reflective of that old bylaw.
Well, so is number 10. So is your original one, right? So your original one still says, geez, you really shouldn't be investigating if you're going to be acting in that,
Acting in a judicial capacity.
which means hearing discipline, right? So that's backwards though, because you don't know that you're going to be entertaining a proposed disciplinary matter unless I come to you and say, I would like discipline in excess of 10 days, right? Because that's the requirement. And so I think you have to flip-flop that because the investigation comes before your quasi judicial role.
I read it differently. I read it that if you said to us, I'm doing an internal investigations report and I, want to bring submit, then if somebody decides to go take it upon themselves to investigate, I don't know, maybe that wasn't the thought.
So would that be okay with you?
No, it's not okay.
Okay, so I think that's what he's trying to prevent, is that somebody is then gonna go and investigate.
Right, but that's what it says, to refrain from that.
I don't think the flip in the phraseology here is a substantive change from kind of the sentiment and the work that we did in the subcommittee, but it does kind of put it in a more logical order. So I look at that as not really a change, but just an improvement in the wordsmithing. So
I think
would
it's
support it.
the only, from my mindset, my idea, all it does is put it in chronological order. It doesn't change the meaning of the sentiment that you spent a lot of time discussing.
Jill, do you know what the thought process was putting in that order?
Well,
Because I look at it the total opposite. I look at if you're told that somebody's gonna be disciplined and then you say, well, let me go check this out myself. That's how I read that.
that's how you read that last,
With number
the
10.
revision,
No, the one,
the way the
yes.
previous one.
So remember, if you're involved in an investigation, if we're talking an employee investigation, not a criminal investigation, obviously. If you're involved in an employee investigation at any point during the investigation, and then the matter comes before you, your prejudice could prevent you from operating in that capacity, in your quasi judicial capacity. And so that's why I think it must be in chronological order, so that commissioners now and obviously for the future, which is really what we're writing for, understand that progression. Because no one here knows, there could be an internal investigation going on right now, and all of you would not know, and you could be looking into it, right? And so that would preclude you from serving in your role that the community elected you to do, right?
I think I understand where you're coming from with the flip flop.
Mhm.
And I do agree with you that the way it was originally written, maybe it does need to be flipped. I'm not so sure that I agree with the language, that language.
I say, let's collaborate, figure it out.
Because to me, this is much more symbolic of the way the original bylaw was written. And I would probably like to rework that a little bit. Keeping it the flip-flopped, as you
Mhm.
say.
Can I just from a point of efficiency, if we're gonna dig in on that, which it sounds like your suggestion, Jill, which is great. Are we okay with all of the other changes in this red-green document that's here before we really dig into it? I don't wanna lose track of the other pieces.
I think there was consensus on those.
Not total. I'm still having trouble with number 9 and
yes.
taking out quasi judicial capacity. So I guess that's what Joe's asking. I personally see nothing wrong with number 10. But I think number 10 is basically saying it specifies when you're acting as in a quasi judicial capacity. Okay, you know something's coming up, don't investigate. And I think that's important. I like the way you guys worked really hard on this. I like the way you worded it. I think it says it. The flip flop is kind of like, don't investigate because something may come up as a quasi judicial thing. Not, if you want to know, should I buy this or should I buy another thing?
This is
Okay,
specific to
should I
personnel.
buy this?
Yeah, this is specific to personnel related
It doesn't
investigation.
say it though.
No, but Carol, you have to think police commission mindset. Like, yes, this is
But if I
not
don't know
something that's
anything-
happening, but if somebody says that Patrolman Spira hit a dog, are you gonna go and follow him around to see if he hits another dog while he's on patrol?
Of course not.
Are you gonna go and ask other people if they saw him hit this dog
No,
or another dog?
no.
So the-
Okay, so that is what needs to be specified, because I know that seems dumb, and like, of course we wouldn't do that. But if Patrolman Spear went around and, told somebody that he was gonna push his cat down a flight of stairs, are you gonna go around and ask if anybody else has heard of this complaint?
No, I think I
before?
advise that person to go file a report.
Exactly, but we have to specify that it's not Carol's duty, it is not in her right.
Well, we
and
can't
it-
write that on there. We can't put Carol Manning specifically.
Well, so first of all, I would never push Louis or Carmine down the stairs, but the only
You're not a
time
patrolman either.
I was at a time, it was a fun time, a lot less responsibility and stress. I didn't have to come to these meetings the fourth Monday of the month.
So here,
But the only time you're in your quasi judicial capacity is a disciplinary hearing.
okay, and you just said if there's an internal investigation report, first of all, we don't even know about it. So how are we investigating if we don't know about it? To me, the opportunity for somebody to try to investigate would be once they have the internal investigation report and then they say, oh, wait a minute, I want to dig a little deeper on that.
Unless you were the conduit to the complaint, right? So in the case of the cats or whatever, you said that you would refer them or encourage them to make a complaint. Well, now you know about it. So unless you have this language, there's nothing that would prevent you from going to interview my family members to see if I pushed Louis and Carmine
I
down the
wouldn't do that
stairs.
because I know I can't.
Right, but it doesn't say that anywhere.
How do you know you can't?
That's the thing.
As police
How-
commissioners, we are not, as police commissioners, we are not allowed to do independent
Where
investigation.
does it say that?
In our bylaws already.
In
Well, yes, but you're
our
getting rid of that.
bylaws.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to be part of it,
Right, right.
adopting, so I'm kind of in left.
So because that bylaw is being expunged from the
Right.
document, that sentiment that the vice chairman just said, because you've been on the commission for a long time and you understand that, and you've worked with labor council, et cetera, no longer exists anywhere in the written rules for new commissioners. And so I
That's why it's
think,
important.
I think that's why you had number 10.
Right.
And again, I'm just looking to put it in chronological order. You can certainly add on for personnel matters, sorry. But again, the only time this commission is in a quasi judicial capacity is not picking Fords or Chevys. It's terminate, don't terminate, more than 10 days, not more than 10 days.
I don't know, I know you spent time, but I still, you know, and I know you know what you're talking about, but I still have problems with the flip flop. Others apparently don't, and I'm just one person. But I mean, I can think of something, it's not Ford and Chevy, it's not, am I gonna buy this or am I gonna buy that? But there are some things you might want to just check online, you know, am I better off to have this or that? Am I better off? And I don't think that.
So I agree with you, Carol, but again, the examples you're giving are not what we're talking about. We're talking about only personnel related matters, no other decisions whatsoever.
Do you really
But the-
think anybody's gonna like prevent me from Googling, did Spira push on a cat online? No, but it's when
So,
you
like-
go out to your neighbors
If
and
I-
your, sorry.
Yeah, Carol, I think, I hear, I'm trying to do my reflective listening here.
Good.
Based on what you just said, I believe that's covered in number 4. Where when we're not talking about violence against felines, right? Where we're talking about Fords and Chevys, you know, it's the participating, keeping informed, right? That's the key, like, go ahead and Google Chevys. That's
Oh,
up
you're
in number
talking
4
more
at
up
the top.
above, okay.
Yeah, so I think that touches upon what you're speaking about. And I think number 11 talks about, you know, in the world of personnel matters. So in my mind, the flip-flop makes sense because the other piece is covered up above. in
Wait, I
number
thought Carol, you saw the concern with 9.
Well,
Shit,
yeah,
so-
but they kind of let that one go, but on 11.
Well, it's the same, it's almost the same argument of the quasi judicial capacity. So all my suggestion was in 9 is not to limit it to just your disciplinary role, to expand it to those hiring, firing decisions, promotion, no promotion decisions. So quasi judicial does not cover, should someone be hired as a police officer? It does not cover who out of the 3 candidates should be promoted to sergeant. And that's where I thought you would want to expand
You
that.
should be non-biased in those things. as well.
I think you have to be, otherwise I think someone could claim, well, hey, listen, Auntie Sue was on the commission. And she was part of the one who voted for the guy that was number 2 in the written text. That's not fair, and I think that covers that for you.
I'm okay with 9 as you revised it, and mostly because I can see the problem that would happen if it's not just quasi judicial capacity, but also general votes of the commission, general votes, meeting to meeting, that maybe it needs to be a little broader than just in the quasi judicial capacity.
So how about decisions made by the commission, not limited to their quasi judicial capacity?
In all discussions or decisions, including quasi-judicial, is that more palatable, folks?
That's fine.
Is acting, I'm sorry, where?
In all discussions,
At the end of the
Or decisions
decision.
by the commissions,
Okay.
including
Made by.
when acting
Made by the
in
commission.
its quasi-judicial.
Can you read that once more, Joe?
I'll let Jennifer do that, 'cause-
yes,
No, oh, no, you're not caught up, sorry.
okay, Joe, you gotta do it again then.
Made by the commission.
Understand that the
When-
demonstration of bias or prejudgment may prevent that commissioner from participating in all discussions or in, no, it doesn't work that.
In discussions or decisions.
In discussion or decisions
Decisions,
made by the commission when acting in a
Including.
quasi,
including but not limited to when acting in its quasi-judicial capacity.
including but not limited to, when including but not, sorry. To acting, okay. One more time for the jury.
In all discussions, or just don't want ever retainer, in all discussions
Yeah.
or decisions made by the commission, including but not limited to when acting in its quasi judicial capacity, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
I can live with that.
I'm good with that.
Okay,
Okay, and so now it's collaboration time on number 10.
Okay.
again, I guess part of what bothers me in 11 is maybe to serve. I mean, it's like, that's pretty wide open. You can't
Well,
do
you
anything.
can change it from may to, when serving in a quasi judicial capacity. I was trying to live it a little bit more.
But isn't that would be an exact flip-flop of the 10 that was there.
Okay, so it's 10 for 10.
Yeah, so my 11 is, will be your 10. If we decide on some different language. So Carol, what are you saying? Change it from maybe to when serving?
I guess it sounded good when you said it. I should write it down.
So that would be recognize that they must refrain from acting in an investigative capacity as part of their responsibility when serving in a quasi judicial capacity.
Yeah, I like that.
Serving.
Because that is a complete flip-flop.
As part of their responsibility.
Okay, as part of the.
No, so that doesn't make sense, though.
Serving, no.
No, that doesn't make sense. So what we're saying there is, part of your responsibility as a police commissioner is to act in a quasi judicial capacity.
Right.
Because you have that responsibility, you must refrain from investigating.
And that's what number 10 said.
But
Okay.
investigating in that way is very broad. So the reason for this, okay, I suppose maybe go back a little for in history of how this all evolved. Part of it was the keeping informed that we discussed around and around and around. I was bothered by keeping informed regarding matters within their purview, within the committee, the subcommittee. And I wanted some guardrails on that. And what part of the reason why number 10 is framed that way, was framed that way by Chubb, because I wanted that guardrail. I wanted some assurance that there wouldn't be any full-blown like investigations just generally. And that's how that came to be.
So, thank you. I hear you. I think that there has to be some way to find the verbiage. I don't know what it is, but to find the words that explain to police commissioners that because they do have that responsibility in acting in that quasi judicial capacity, that they cannot be part of the personnel investigation. They can't serve in both roles. You can't investigate and hand out the sentence. Can't do that. And so there's got to be some way to properly document that. So all commissioners, both now and in the future, understand that they can't be the investigator and the judge and jury.
Well, isn't that what number 10 says?
That's what I understand. That's how I read it, but
Because
I
now
think-
we
I
know
think
we're
so.
in a quasi.
But that's the problem.
judicial but now we know we're in a quasi.
So let me throw this
Gonna be
scenario out.
investigated.
just let
Hang
Carol
on
finish.
one
One
second.
second.
Okay, there is an internal investigation. You let us know. We're gonna be meeting in executive session. Maybe we even have the material, okay? Now we're not supposed to investigate. That to me makes sense. Number 10, as was written, makes sense.
It's,
What you reread or my perception of what you said for your number 10 was exactly the same thing, except you're saying you can't investigate because you may be, I think, for sure, when you know it's a quasi judicial thing, don't investigate. And that's to me.
Wait,
what
So
number 10
here's a scenario. You see something on social media that says Captain DePerry, this, that, and the other thing. As a commissioner, the only thing I should be doing at that point is say, Chief, are you aware of the social media post?
Right,
I should not be asking people, hey, did you hear, what about? Now I've started to investigate, and this is well before we have any notice that there's an internal investigation. So I think that's the reason for the chronological flip-flop.
so let me just say this, an individual, to your point, Carol, you may not know that you're about to serve in a quasi judicial capacity until you receive a letter from me requesting
Right,
discipline,
otherwise
right?
I don't.
You don't. Unless, going back to the vice chairman's example, unless you're the individual that somebody came to with a complaint.
Okay,
And so if you're the individual that someone came to with a complaint, we need to find out some way to convey that you are not allowed to investigate, because you will also be required or may be required to act in that quasi judicial capacity by assigning discipline.
but
So
you're-
what road sign can we give a individual commissioner, because this won't come as a group, that says, whoa, because I have this other responsibility, my other elected responsibility. No one was elected here to perform personnel investigations. No one. I don't know, maybe some of you individually, maybe in your capacity. I don't know if anyone's had the training to conduct personnel investigations. I don't know if anyone here understands the legality and the due process rights that come along with personnel investigations. This commission relies on me as your professional CEO of the agency to make sure that we do that properly. But I need some sort of language in this outstanding bylaw that says to volunteer civilian elected officials, thank you, that personnel investigations are not your job.
I personally think anybody with half a brain should know that we, at any point, could have to make a decision on somebody. If you bring us an internal investigations report, so we should know ahead of time that, I mean, this should all be given to everybody, that we don't investigate.
But that's what we're doing, I think, is we're giving this to everybody. That's the point of writing this. It's not for us. We all are on the same page right now. But I think the idea is to codify some language to give to whoever gets elected in November.
All right, so devil's advocate, ready? I'm not gonna speak to the exact incident, but I know there's one on your mind, Carol, that you brought up quite often. Okay, so the Spira pushed our cat down the stairs, my cat down the stairs. I wasn't home, nobody heard of it. However, Alexa recorded the whole thing, but we can't get Alexa's recording, but we know it because it's recorded on my device, and I'm a police commissioner. But I shouldn't say that because it wouldn't be involved. My neighbors, okay? So it's my neighbor's cat that got pushed down the stairs by Chief Spira. She brings over the recording of Spira pushing my cat down the stairs. What do you do?
Well, why would
As-
Carol be involved?
yeah, as a police commissioner.
As a neighbor, she could have said, hey, you know, I know that Spira pushed my cat down the stairs. I can't prove it. 3 days later, she figures out Alexa recorded it, let's say.
Well, then the commissioner should say, let's take it to the police department.
When she knew that Spira did it, or when Alexa proved it?
I think
When
we're
do you think-
overthinking this.
No, we're not, but I mean, it's.
Well,
there's-
yelling isn't gonna help, so that's fine.
The what?
Yelling isn't gonna help to get your point across.
Am I yelling?
So let me
Making
take an attempt to
sure people hear.
refocus here just
Can I
real
say
quick.
something?
Yes,
since
of course.
been
It's our
thrown to me?
discussion, so Carol, go ahead.
Okay. Your example, I don't know what to do with that one, so I'm going to go back to Chief Spira.
Who likes cats, by the way, we could just, we could clear
And
the
who
air.
would not push
I
a
would
cat
not
down
push
the
a cat down the
stairs?
stairs.
Because you're smart enough to know it would land on its feet, so you
But you
know.
did promote me again, so I guess.
Oh, that's
We're
true.
50% there. Go ahead.
Let's take number 10 for a minute and the point you were making. I don't know, I jotted something down. It may or may not make sense. When acting in their quasi judicial capacity, refrain from also acting in an investigative capacity, especially if that commissioner brought forth the complaint. So in other words, you are addressing that individual who knows that there's going to be a judicial thing. And you're saying, it, you know, none of us should be investigating, but especially if you brought forth the complaint and therefore know that there's going to be some kind of an investigation.
But we all understand that we should not be investigating. So to state that first, I don't see a problem with that. I think adding something about personnel issues, the wordsmithing, it might be a good idea. But I mean, we all understand But we're not writing this for us, we're writing this for the future.
Yep.
So we should be very plain that says, recognize, must refrain from acting in investigative capacity, and why is that? Because you may be involved in a quasi judicial capacity as part of a personnel investigation.
But it's only gonna be personnel. We just went over that quasi judicial. We don't have to specify it's over what cars we're buying.
So is, Joe, then, I hate to have to read the whole thing, but as part of their responsibility when acting rather than may be to serve? Is that, I can buy that.
So here's my
I can
concern.
buy the flip flop.
Yeah, here's my concern with that. So members of the commission will not know that they are about to act in a quasi judicial capacity until I inform you and request that discipline be issued. I do that when I want discipline issued in excess of 10 days.
Right.
So if that becomes your starting point of not being able to investigate, the investigation has already happened. What the commission does is the commission listens to what's called a ladder mill hearing. And sadly, you've had to do some of those. And during the ladder mill hearing is when the person that has charges brought against them has an opportunity to respond to those charges in your presence prior to you making a disciplinary decision.
Right.
So if we start, you can't investigate clause at the time you receive my request for discipline, it's too late because the entire investigation has happened. I need something that says to the police commission that before we get to that point, that they cannot conduct personnel investigations.
But how would we know if there's even something out there?
If you were the
On
one,
social or?
no, if you were the one that was approached. And so there's 7 of you, you're community members. Any one of you at any time can be approached with a complaint about any one of the members of our agency. And I've heard many of you tonight say, well, if that happens, I would tell them to go file a complaint. Awesome. But nowhere in this document does it say that. It does say it a different spot in your current bylaws, and we want to remove that because you guys don't like that language. I respect that. But the sentiment, the sentiment of that language has to appear somewhere, and it makes sense to appear in something called responsibilities of commissioners.
But what if we weren't approached directly?
Then you wouldn't know, and you wouldn't be conducting a personnel investigation.
So how about this? How about this? Recognize that a commissioner may need to serve in a quasi judicial capacity and therefore must refrain from acting in an investigative capacity.
Wait, what?
Say that again?
Say.
Recognize commissioners, because remember the top, right? All police commissioners will recognize that they may need to serve in a quasi judicial capacity and therefore must always refrain from acting in an investigative capacity.
I like always instead of must. I think you said must.
I said must always. but we
Oh,
can
must
have
always,
must.
Can we do it overtime? I'm sorry. Jill's
I don't know if
lost too.
Jen got it.
Better.
Recognize that a commissioner may need to serve in a quasi judicial capacity and therefore must always refrain from an
From acting in an investigative capacity.
As part of it, or are we getting rid of that?
No, that's it. That's all.
So that uses a lot of Carol's language, but still the flip flop.
Right, it puts it together the chronological, and it gives
Yeah, I
the
can
reason
buy
for it.
that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Recognize.
Jill, do you have any concerns with that being changed?
I am
Still trying to
still
get it.
trying to get my.
Sorry.
But Carol has it.
I
So
wasn't
Carol,
here.
please review
I'm
that.
having like a lot of distractions.
Oh, you don't have that.
Joe has it.
Okay,
Ask Joe.
one more time. Yeah, Jen. We're right now.
Recognize, just tell me from right there. Recognize that a commissioner may need to serve in a quasi judicial capacity and therefore must always refrain from acting in an investigative capacity.
No problem.
That makes sense. Renee, does that make sense to you?
It kind of does, but I still think the other way says the exact same thing.
Which way, ten
original
red or
way.
10
The
green?
original way that Chubb, Jill, and Joe wrote it.
When acting there. So we're not, I'm sorry, what, Carol?
You said what
I'm
Joe just read is
trying
closer
to
the
explain that to my way of looking at it, what Jill just read is closer to the number 10,
Which I read.
but Jen, yes.
So you're
Are you
fine with
happy with Jill?
what Jen just read?
Yes, I said I was.
So you're okay with it?
Jill, where do you, I know you should, well, tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, okay.
Jen?
One more time?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Recognize that a commissioner may need to serve in a quasi judicial capacity and therefore must always refrain from acting in an investigative capacity.
No, take your time. Commissioner to serve.
I think Jill's trying to concentrate.
No, we're actually working. That will recognize that. Okay, I got it. You got it?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
My concern is that you're one of the original authors, you and Joe, so
Well, actually, this was Chubb's language more than anything else, which,
Pardon, but Jill, I think we said we were gonna move it to the next one, but can't we make a modification if when our chairman comes back, he says, oh, I have a problem here?
Then you'd have to wait another
We have to
month.
wait another meeting.
Yeah. So we're hoping to pass
So we
this,
can,
right?
if it's out now, we can actually do something in it.
If you pass this at your next meeting, you will have revised all your bylaws,
Jill, if you don't feel comfortable with
but
this.
still obviously.
I am comfortable with this. The word always bothers me. Because that is just exclusive. And I think going back to the original, and maybe you guys can help me out here. Going back to the original bylaw that I have a problem with. Part of it was that I worried about bumping into a neighbor on the street or a friend and having them tell me something. And I didn't want to be accused of conducting an investigation if I had that conversation. So I'm wondering, where does this fit in
Sure.
with that?
So let me use the example that I've used from the moment we began talking about this before you were even on the commission. So you're a member of the community, you're an elected member of the police commission. You're in aisle 3 of Stop and Shop. Your best friend comes up to you and says, oh my God, I was about to call you. I'm so glad I'm seeing you here. I was just harassed by officer so-and-so on a traffic stop. Your response, oh my God, what happened? Totally fine. Well, officer so-and-so pulled me over and said I was doing 100 on Main Street. There's no way I was doing 100, da, 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 da. Your response from that should be, well, if you want to file a complaint,
Right.
do this. If you'd like me to call the chief for you and set up a meeting, I'll do that for you. But if you then say, who was in the car with you? Let me talk to that person. Now you're investigating. That's where I don't want you to go. I want you to have the community conversation, but I want you to know when to stop. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
I mean, so look, when Carl has brought people to the police station to talk to me about complaints, he's encouraged people. He's walked down and stood next to someone as they fill out
I
a
was
full-blown.
afraid to do it.
Right.
I'm like, you shouldn't be afraid.
You shouldn't be afraid. Stood next to him. They filled out the full-blown civilian complaint form, met with a sergeant, signed, done. Commissioner Maselli has tipped me off to things and have told me and brought people in to talk to me. That's completely appropriate. It just can't have you, whip out a pad and start investigating. That's all.
But see, to me, that almost rings worse because now you're involved, you're bringing the person there. Like, that's.
Yeah, but to fill out a.
To fill out a form, you're not investigating.
Yeah, moral support, not
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, I think that's totally appropriate.
It's a piece of paper to fill out.
So what would you rather have them do, Renee?
I would tell somebody that you can fill out a complaint form and they're available online.
Okay,
If I'm to not be involved at all, that to me would be the response.
Right, and then that would be correct. But again, you're not everyone. You're not the remaining 6 and you're not the future 7. So that's why I think it's important to have these rules down. So
Okay, I'm okay with
Joe's version.
Joe's version
Yeah.
of this.
Me too.
Okay, so do you want to rescind your motion and then?
Well, I can make it as revised.
Okay, perfect.
You'll have the language for that, Jen.
For what?
Then the motion will be as revised
Mhm.
based on the revisions within this document. So, do you want to read that one more time, if you don't mind?
The last one?
The last number 10.
Okay. Recognize that a commissioner may need to serve in a quasi judicial capacity and therefore must always refrain from acting in an investigative capacity.
It's all right, I got it.
Working together.
Thank you.
Joe, you fine with all?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay, so Jill's revised her motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
So the revised motion encompasses all of the changes
All
that
the
there
changes
was.
that we discussed and that Jen has.
Okay.
Who seconded it before? That motion,
Hold on.
shouldn't he be the one to?
If you're, yes,
So you're okay with must always and not submitted, right?
So-
I'll second.
Okay.
the cleanest way would be to withdraw your first motion and the second and just say, I make a motion to approve and send to the next meeting for action as revised through discussion.
Perhaps so.
Yeah.
But we're not doing it.
Okay, just telling you the cleanest way to do that. And then, so a clean copy will be disseminated to the commission, and then that will also be included online in next month's packet, because that'll be an action item for you to approve this bylaw.
Correct.
So there'll be an up or down vote on this revised bylaw at the June meeting.
Okay, so Jill made the motion, Joe seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And we thought it was gonna be short, and I haven't been here.
We're in the home stretch now.
Next time. At number 7, correspondence.
Do we have any?
Chuck didn't give me anything, so I don't know.
I don't think there's been anything.
Jen, do you have anything?
No, nothing that was forwarded to me.
Okay. Moving on then, comments from the public. We'll start with the public, the audience. Any comments? Go ahead.
Yeah,
No, Looney.
Mike, hold on just one second. Linda's gonna talk first.
Linda Mahal. So, I just wanted to mention that, when you were talking about conflict of interest, the town, I wanted to remind you, the town does have an ethics code, which is very, clear about conflict of interest. And if someone had an objection, they could file an ethics complaint, and the ethics committee or whatever would hand down a decision on that. So I would just caution you that you don't have to take on every role of every part of the town government or the state government. Some of those things are farmed out for good reason. So please keep that in mind. You do have an ethics code to rely on. I was very happy to hear people talk about the fact that you all represent the voters, that you're accountable to the voters. And I agree with the part about, you know, you have something about representing the people and something about providing for the proper functioning of the department. So I thought that was a very good balance. Thank you very much. I'd like to say that it was a bit disappointing, given all the time and resources that had been spent by the members of the subcommittee, that it then became a debate here largely controlled by the chief, who represents himself and the department, who's represented by a union, who's represented by a whole superstructure that makes it very hard to terminate a police officer in our country. So I was concerned about that. And finally, I'd like you to all keep in mind the First Amendment. Your First Amendment rights do not disappear when you become elected officials, and the people's First Amendment rights specifically state in the First Amendment that the specific type of speech that is mentioned in the First Amendment is the right to approach the government for redress of grievances. So I'm very concerned as you go forward with these bylaws, that you're not muzzling yourselves or muzzling the public in our ability to exercise our collective First Amendment rights, which is what's needed if we want to solve problems, if we want to have justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
Mike, did you have something to say?
She covered everything.
Okay. Anybody else? Larry, anybody hands raised?
No hand raised online.
Okay, so we'll close the public comment. Item number 9, I don't even know where, sorry, where am I going?
9 is done.
Oh, items number 9 and 10, we're not having them. We don't have candidates. There any other way to explain that.
Do we need to table those or no?
No, there's no action to take. We do have candidates, but the process is not yet complete and they're not ready to appear in front of you. So it'd be a waste of your time and waste of mine, quite frankly, if we had that interview now, but that's why we're seeking to schedule that special meeting. Sounds like everyone is good with Monday, June 5th or Wednesday, June 7th for a special meeting. So when the chairman gets back from vacation tomorrow or the next day, I'll reach out to him, let him know the consensus, and hopefully one of the 2 days is good for him. And then we can go ahead and get that posted.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, I do have one question. Chief, what's the complement of the police department at full capacity?
You mean numbers, maybe?
Yeah,
I can talk to him after the meeting when, public comments ended and it's not a back and forth, so. But I'm more than happy to talk to Mr. Blooming.
Mike, he said he'll talk to you right after the meeting.
what's that?
He's gonna talk to you right after the meeting. I believe it's 25 total, not including dispatchers. Okay, comments from the chief of police?
Great, just a couple quick things. So first of all, thank you very much for the collaboration tonight. If you remember, one of my executive goals this year is to collaborate more with the commission, and what we did tonight is just another example of that. So thank you for allowing me to participate in that discussion, as you've allowed me to in the past, and obviously, hopefully, you'll continue to do that. I want to congratulate our Old Saybrook Senior High School senior athletes. I had the opportunity and the joy to be the master of ceremonies for the senior awards, athletic awards last night. And all of our senior athletes who have participated, whether it's on the court, the field, the river, the pool, the track, and all over the place. Our high school seniors have really led the way and has served as tremendous role models for our younger youth. And they brought home some state championships for us this year. So I was very honored and proud to be there, and still honored to be the vice president of the Ram Booster organization. The street party that we were talking about, so Celebrate Saybrook, is scheduled for June 25th. We're closing Main Street from Main and Sheffield to Main and Elm Street. I'm fortunate to be on the committee with some very talented individuals, and we're currently soliciting restaurants to come and participate in a mini Taste of Old Saybrook. There are some food trucks that will be coming. There's going to be lots of entertainment, 3 different bands, a guy on stilts, which I'm pretty excited to see, and all sorts of stuff for the kids. There's a bunch of the breweries, local breweries, that will be coming to offer samples, and all of our Main Street businesses will be extending into the street, their services into the street that day. So really, really excited to be on the planning committee with that. And that is it for me.
Okay, comments and commissioners, I'll start with Joe.
Nothing, thank you.
Jessica?
The only, I was gonna ask about the party, the town party, what I'm calling it anyway. Are the SROs involved?
So the police department will be staffing the event, but there's not a specific activity for the school resource officer.
Okay,
They're out of school at that point, so some of them are done for
maybe
the school
involved
year.
the kid events or,
Bill?
I want to thank you, Renee, for allowing the chief to make his comments tonight on this bylaw. I think it was very important to have that perspective. And I want to thank you too for offering your vision on some of this stuff, because you have a different way of viewing it that we might not have seen. And I just appreciate all of the different conversation.
Thank you.
Carl?
I just want to thank my fellow commissioners for all the work they did on this
Yeah.
bylaw proposal, and I'd like to see it come to fruition.
Thank you. I echo what Carl said, and I don't have anything else.
Okay, I echo the same exact thing, like I said earlier. And just one quick thing, Mike, if you're looking for a roster, I can print it off for you off of the town website. It's all public knowledge.
No, just the figure is, I'm at 27.9.
Okay, the chief has the exact numbers. He said he'll give it to you. Okay, moving to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you guys very much.